Okay, now let's look at this stress. All right, this is very biopsychological, I must say. Right, it's a bit unfortunate that we did not really have the time to go through it, right, for our this lecture 2 and 3. But now we're covering it, right? So I think it's about time. Okay, so before I go on, I just want to refresh everybody's memory. I think everybody, right, every single one of us, we know what stress is, right? The very fact that we are here, you are listening to me, I'm doing this, right, is that we have actually overcome a lot of stressful events in our lives, right? So stress, psychologically speaking, right, it is any variable, right, that harms, that threatens, or challenges our mental and physical integrity, right? So this is how I see it. This is how I will define it. And then in our this recording, right, in our textbook, right, you guys came across this thing called GAS, right, which we call General Adaptation Syndrome. And then there's also something called a transactional process, okay? Transactional process between the individual and the environment. So before I talk about the transactional process, let me just talk about the psychobiological process, okay? That is really internal. So why do we call this? Why do we call this thing GAS, right? What is happening? What is adapting, right? So essentially, it is really our immune system, right? Our nervous system as well, our sympathetic nervous system. So these two systems, they're trying to adapt, right, to this stressful event. So the three processes that make up this GAS, right? If you look back your slides, look back through your slides, you will see alarm, okay? You will see resistance, and the last thing you see is exhaustion, right? Exhaustion of what? Exhaustion of our immune system. So before I carry on, I just want to mention alarm. Okay, when alarm happens, our sympathetic nervous systems get very heightened, right? I mean, it's very much activated, and stress-related hormones like adrenaline, like cortisol, they're secreted in high amounts. And what will happen is that our body will try to develop some kind of resistance, right? We'll try to restore all the stress-related hormones back to the normal baseline. And then if that doesn't really happen, right, we will get this exhaustion, right? Exhaustion of our immune system, exhaustion of our cardiovascular system as well. So not a good thing to have, right? So in other words, this thing is very physiological in nature, right? GAS is just very internal, very personal, okay? Um, on the other hand, when you look at transactional process, right, which involve emotional forecasting, I'll get to that, okay? So what is happening? Okay, transaction between the individual and the environment, right? It's really talking about all this kind of interaction, okay, that's happening at the cognitive level and the emotional level. For the cognitive level, we're talking about primary appraisal. So what is happening is that we are very situational. We're focused on the situation at hand. So when there's something that is very stressful happens, all right? Let's say we are going to do this final exam. Let's say tomorrow, okay, instead of like a month from now. Okay, let's say tomorrow. Okay, we're going to do it tomorrow, and then that is very stressful. And then you know that okay, it's just no time to study. How am I going to get a good grade, right? So this is a kind of situation that is going to occur. And then what you're going to do, right, is that you're thinking about, okay, now I'm in this emergency situation, right? What are the good options that I have? What kind of decisions should I make to get myself out of this stressful situation? So you are exercising your brain, in other words, yeah. So that is primary appraisal. Okay, after primary appraisal, right, there is this secondary appraisal. Secondary appraisal is a more higher dimensional kind of thinking, right? Higher order thinking. And it involves, like what I say, emotional forecasting, right? So what is happening is that after you completed the primary appraisal, you will have a set of options. You would have decided that you may take one of those options from a list of options that you contemplated. However, before you actually want to commit yourself to any of these decisions, actions, you will want to kind of forecast, right, the emotion that you will obtain, right, after you perform that action. So this is, in a nutshell, this is secondary appraisal. So usually, right, under most circumstances, we'll choose the decision, the action that will lead to positive emotions, right? Yeah, so that's very, very commonsensical, where we don't want something that is wholly negative, right? We always want to something that is wholesome, that is positive. We don't want something that is negative to happen to us at the end of the day, right? So that is the power of secondary appraisal. Okay, and so the definition of emotional forecasting, okay, just now I said already, but I just want to rephrase this. So it's really about us predicting, okay, what feelings, the situation, right? It's really the situation, okay? The situation will produce, and then after that, we want to predict again, right? The second prediction, predict again the likely emotional impact of such potential response. Yeah. So it's a two-stage prediction process, right? One is about the feeling that the situation produced, and then the likely emotional impact, right? Yeah, on our health. Yeah. And then, okay, the third point is, okay, we're talking about the stress and health and personality, right? So if you read your textbook, you'll come across this type A personality and then this type B personality, right? So this type A personality is the aggressive type, okay? And then we have this word called hard driving, okay? And then the person is not just hard on himself, he is also hard on the people around him. So if you have a boss who is type A, you're not going to get a lot of time to rest, right? So not a good person to work under, right? And then type B is the reverse. Type B is the easygoing type, the congenial type, the friendly type. Okay, when you compare the physiological responses of these two people, right, they're drastically different. And the type A's, right, I think it has been shown like in hundreds of papers, right, that they're just much more likely than type B's and type C's. There is a type C, all right, okay, it's to get cardiovascular disease. Yeah, so this is the not a very good kind of personality to have. Okay, yeah, so I think the trend for health psychology these days is to investigate type B's and type C's. Okay, type C is something a little bit like a combination of both, right? And then yeah, so because like type A that has really been really well researched. Yeah, so it's more, the emphasis is more on type B's these days. All right. Okay, so before I go on, I want to talk a little bit more about this coping mechanisms, right? Coping mechanism. I just want everybody to make this association, right, between this problem-focused mechanism, coping mechanism, right? I want everybody to tie this thing to primary appraisal, okay? That is evaluating the stressful situation, right? So that is problem-focused. That's what I mentioned. You're exercising your brain, right? You're exercising your past experiences. Yeah. Emotion focus is, of course, tied to emotional forecasting, our secondary appraisal, right? So always remember this thing. And emotion focus is a level higher. I would say it's a level higher than problem focus, because problem focus, you just want to get the problem resolved. You don't really want to care about how you would feel at the end. If you really want to care about how you would feel at the end, you got to bring in this emotional focus coping method. Yeah. And then the last one would be the social support method, right? That is really bringing people that you know, right? Your family members, your friends, your colleagues, right? Any kind of person that can support you, right? Yeah. So this is very important. All right. So now I think